Hello, I'm your host, Chris Garris, and you're watching The Transporter Room. Today, I have the pleasure to speak with Kirnjeet. She is one of my fellow Patreon members from the Search for Trek YouTube channel. Thank you for making the time to come onto the show today.
Hi, Chris. Nice to see you.
You too. So, how are you doing today so far?
Doing great so far. Yeah, how about you?
Not too bad. Staying warm. Luckily, we didn't get the snow like a lot of the other parts of the country did down in Texas.
Oh, that's good to hear. Yeah, we're
Yeah, it
pretty
is.
in Vancouver, mild temperatures.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, that's good. So no snow up there yet?
Nope.
So does Vancouver get a lot of snow usually or
I've only been here since the summer of 2023, and since then last winter, that was our first winter here, we had some snow, some snowfall. Here this time we haven't. This year we haven't, which is wonderful because I personally don't like snow. So it's good
a
for me.
lot of people don't like snow, come to
My
find
husband
out.
loves it, so he's missing Ontario. That's where we're from.
Oh, okay. Oh, well, I guess he'll just have to go to Ontario if he wants to see snow
Exactly.
or somewhere else.
Yeah.
Um, so I just want to say it has been a pleasure getting to run the Star Trek franchise with you on the Search for Trek. How are you liking that? So
It's fun. It's I haven't actually sat and watched the original series in quite a while, and it's really fun to watch it with other fans because we'll talk about it, but, like, I've spent most of my life being a Trekkie and being kind of isolated, I guess, so it's fun to have other people to chat about it with and to see people's reactions, and the commentary during the episode is super fun to listen to.
yes, and see, and I'm like you. I had never I had started watching TOS, the original series, um, long before we did our thing, and I'd get into it, and it was just hard for me to watch by myself.
Oh, yeah.
It was just hard because, I was raised on The Next Generation. That was my first series, to be honest with you, and so to watch the original series was just I couldn't get past, honestly, the special effects or the lack thereof and the sets and all that. It just made my head hurt. Um, and the acting, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah,
I'm just like,
I
"Oh
can
my
see
god."
that.
But I gave it a chance, and I was enjoying it, because I just had to put myself in that mindset that it was, the 1960s when it came out, and if I was, had been alive back then, how cool it would have actually been, and not put 1980s and now 2025, you know, technology on it. So, but well, yeah, so of the because I couldn't tell you honestly off the top of my head, but of the episodes we've watched so far, which ones have you liked the most, or which one have you liked the most?
Since we're just through the first season now, we
Yeah.
haven't even reached my favorite episode, which is later. Um,
Uh-huh.
but Balance of Terror. I think when we all gave it ratings, everyone gave it pretty much like a 10, like really up there, because it's so that episode itself is just so good. It's so like quintessential Star Trek. It's like the introduction of the Romulans, and it's just really exciting, and watching it for all of the suspense and the action. It's really good. Yeah.
It was, and I'm looking forward to, and I can't remember if it's season 1 or season 2, 'cause I'd already watched it once before, is, Space Seed, when
Ah,
we actually meet Khan.
yeah.
Um, I had never watched it, and then, I don't know what I was doing. I finally said, "I'm gonna go find this." I wanted to see. I must have been watching The Wrath of Khan or who knows what, and, I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna go find it." Got on Paramount, and it was cool. It actually answered stuff to the movie, and made it so much better. Um, so yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Only problem is I don't know if you were on there the day I did the math on, at the time, how many episodes there were and movies. It'd only take us, like, 10 years to finish the movies at 2 a week.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. We'll see where we go.
Well, maybe eventually we'll speed it up and add a couple more watches during the week or something and
Yeah,
make our
that's
way a
gonna be
little.
hard. It's gonna be hard. I've thought about it. It's tough to do it, too much more because sometimes I have meetings at night after work and, ugh, but, you know, we'll figure it out one way or the other. Um, so I was gonna ask, so really, what what first drew you to Star Trek?
Okay, so for me, I have an older brother and an older sister. So my sister's 7 years older than me. My brother's like 3.5 years older. So my sister's actually the one who got me into Star Trek, and I was really young. Yeah, so she was really into I didn't actually know the whole story. I just spoke to her this week just to get the whole story. She told me like because she was so into space and astronomy as a kid, she was looking through remember when we had the TV guide? Yeah, I have what I brought this is the special one that I have.
Oh,
Mm.
wow.
Yeah, this is back from when, the finale was gonna air, so it was, like, the last one last ride.
That's
So
cool.
yeah, we kept it for all these years, and, but yeah, back when we had TV guides, my sister was going through it, and she saw something called Star Trek, and she saw something called Lost in Space. She's like, "That sounds so interesting," and they were airing, like, very late at night, like, this was back probably early '90s. And it was airing I think this is, like, during the summer when they used to air it, like, late at night, probably midnight or something like that, but she stayed up and watched it, and then she told us about it the next day, my brother and I, and she's like, "You guys gotta stay up and, like, watch it with me." And so, I don't know, I think I always tried to stay up, and I didn't make it for a lot of the times, but I do have memories of sitting with my siblings in our basement in our, like, old childhood home, um, watching the TV, and I have memories of watching Lost in Space, like the early like some of the black and white episodes, TOS. I don't have specific memories of TOS, in storyline, but I remember, like, the aesthetic. I remember, the bridge and the crew and the characters, and for Lost in Space, I actually remember some storylines from, like, that 1st season that was in black and white because we used to talk about it all the time. Um, and so there's an episode where I'm not sure if you're familiar with the show, but that was like a huge draw for me to get into sci-fi.
Yeah. I have
There's
not watched it that much. I mean, I got to meet Will Robinson last year.
wow. Okay, that's exciting.
Yeah, Bill Mummy.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bill Mummy at, that was he was the one I got to go see. The episode I went to see record of the decon chamber
Yeah, yeah.
was his.
Oh, no, wait, that was such a good interview as well.
It
Really
was
good.
great.
Yeah. To hear all his memories about that time, even like Babylon 5, which I haven't watched it, but I want to. I watched it when I was a kid, I think here and there, but I never got into it, which I do want to. But yeah, that was how we got into it. Like my sister was really into space and astronomy, and then we used to stay up late and watch it. But my first real trek when because I was old enough, I was born a year before TNG premiered, so we got into it a bit later. Like I got into it a bit later, um, but we watched it during some of the airing, and then we were there for the finale, and it was so exciting. We had a whole party at home, and we celebrated, and we even when DS9 started, we were super excited for that as well, and watched it back then, and something about what you mentioned actually, makes me think because, for me, watching TOS, I can completely understand about the special effects and not being able to get into it and comparing it to what's there today. But even, like, those Irwin Allen shows, like Lost in Space, Voyage to the Sea, Time Tunnel, like, I was really into those as well, and I watched them as a kid, and so when I watch them now, and because I have a daughter now, I'm k tr like, I kinda watch it from a kid's perspective, and first time I watched it and how magical it was, especially that 1st season of Lost in Space, like, the black and white episodes of Lost in Space, and just watching it, it's almost like with a naivete, kind of like Not nitpicking on, like, all of the special effects and stuff like that. It's a different experience watching it from that perspective, which, that's why I love watching them still to this day, and it's kinda gives me that nostalgia.
Yeah. Well, and that's like I said, that's what I had to do. I just had to I don't know if it was Mark or somebody I had talked to. I just finally had to, you know, put all that aside and just look at it for the stories and what they were discussing in the show. And that helped a lot. And it made it watchable. And now we do well on our not on our channel, but on the Seventh Rule, we're actually still doing reviews of the original series with Walter
Oh, wow.
Koenig.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, with Walter, and it's interesting, especially when he's there and we can ask questions every now and then about what it was like on the episodes that he was with. Really, you have a really interesting story. I didn't know that. I mean, you really watch it with your family and how y'all, gathered around and just got into it. And I mean, I did not get to watch DS9 until it came out on Netflix.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah, I was late getting into DS9, um, and I liked it a lot. I
Oh,
really liked it.
I mean, watching it as a kid is completely different. Like, even TNG when I rewatch now,
Oh,
there's so obviously so many things as a kid that just went over my head. But
yep.
watching it now, and especially DS9, because when I watched it as a kid, it was just for, like, because it was in space and, like, some of the storyline I half understood, but now watching it, it's I think that one is pretty much like my comfort show that I like to have on in the background the most. TNG is the one I grew up on, obviously, that's the first one we got into. My sister and I talk about it all the time, but we were there, I think, for the end of season 6, um, or that cliffhanger. I think it was Descent Part 1, where, Thor comes out of the shadows and he's with Data, and the sons of Sung have joined
I
together.
know.
Will destroy the
Ah,
nation. And
I was really worried about that.
I know, all summer long because we had to wait, we were quoting that line back to each other over and over. It was so exciting because 'cause we're like, "What's gonna happen?" And it was that's something that's missing too from that today, like that season finale cliffhanger and then waiting all summer for the premiere.
I know, exactly, and that's how I was with, Best of Both Worlds.
Oh, oh my
The
god,
last words you hear, if I remember correctly, the last words you hear is Riker saying,
fire.
"Fire." Dun, dun, dun,
Yeah, that's so
and
good.
great. And I'm sitting there until September.
You know, for, some of those episodes, like that one in particular, that's something I have to be in the right mindset to watch. When I'm doing, like, a rewatch of the series, there's some episodes that I can't just watch, like, I have to go back to when I'm in the right mindset because it's so emotional. And even Family that comes on, like, right after Best of that's that's also very emotional because he's dealing with the aftermath, and then he goes back to Earth and everything with his family. But
That was a phenomenal episode, honestly. It's just, I wish I'd have been on the Seventh Rule earlier because I came in the middle of there. We just finished season 4. We're starting season 5. I
mm,
would have loved to have been able to talk about those 2 episodes with the group, especially family
mhm,
and also I would say probably, the Drumhead is another one that you might need to be
yeah,
ready to watch because it's
mhm.
very powerful as well.
Admiral Sate.
And
Yeah.
yeah, Admiral Sadie, what is it? Sadie
Sati Sati? Yeah.
Sati, Admiral Sati. Yeah, that was a great one.
Mhm.
Yeah, Admiral Sati. And then, of course, then they followed it up with they actually had that season was really good. They had another back to back was Half a Life.
Oh,
I
yeah,
don't know,
with, one of my other favorite actors from my other favorite show, MASH. David
Mash.
Stiers, yeah,
Yep.
amazing.
And it's those types of episodes now as as an adult watching, it makes they mean so much more.
Yeah, there's even that episode with Riker when he meets the race with 3 genders, I think it is, and he falls in love with, one of
Yes.
the characters who,
Yes,
they
I
fi
know which one you're talking about.
race finds out, and then they deprogram her in some way, and then he comes to save her and tells her he loves her, and she says that, I don't know, like, she's already been changed, and she's like, "No, like,
Yeah.
I'm fine where
Yeah.
I am," and they
Mhm.
her or whatever, it's just
Well, and that also happened in, Enterprise on and I don't remember the episode's name, but it's when, Trip is working on that ship and talks to they have a 3rd gender for doing I think it's progenitor, and he's talking to her and, they treat her as just, nothing, honestly, and he, gets with Flock, says, "Well, is she or as smart as all the other?" And he's like, "Yes," and all this stuff, and starts, giving her books and all this stuff to read. Of course, it doesn't go well at all. But yeah, so that's the thing about Star Trek. It has, as we have matured and gotten older and watched these, you don't realize what in the world they were talking about.
exactly. And that's another even with, the, original series, the episode Your Last Battlefield, with the race, of aliens that are half black and half white, but opposite. There's 2 races that are, like, opposite from each other, and it's so interesting because I actually did a whole presentation on this. I was living in France for a while. I had a job there, but before I moved there, I went to, like, a French school for foreign students. Each opportunity in school that I had to use to like, incorporate Star Trek, I always did. So we had to choose any topic and then talk about it in French. And I was like, "Okay, I think I wanna talk about this episode, and I wanna talk about its impact," and it just I wasn't that good in French at the time, but it was amazing how I was so motivated to talk about it that it helped me kind of get into it more. And it's just amazing how on the surface, that episode looks ridiculous. Like, you see a race with, like, that's half white, half black, like, it's thing like their makeup is but when you really get into the meaning of the episode and what it truly means and there's that one scene where I forgot which character, Lokai, I think he's talking to Kirk and Spock, and he's saying, "Well, the other guy, he's black on the left side," and they're like, "Yeah, so what?" He's like, "Well, I'm black on the right side," and they're like, "Okay, is that really such a big deal?" Like, it's so amazing how they flip it on its head, and it's looking at something as simple as skin color, and it means nothing to us that it's like one side is black, the other side is white. And, um, yeah, it just shows how something as trivial as that is making people fight each other and basically to their deaths, destroying themselves as a race. Yeah, it was so impactful because it's on the surface. You look at this stuff and it's like you might think if you're not familiar with Star Trek, it's frivolous or it's ridiculous, or but we really get down to it. I told this story, I think, to after one of our search for Trek run the franchise meetings about how I went to work one day with my Star Trek magazine, and one of my coworkers saw it, and he started making fun of me like crazy. And he's like, "Oh my god, whose is this? Like, who's Star Trek fan here?" And he's like, "It's so stupid. It's so this. It's so that." And I looked very calmly. I said, "Have you ever watched the show before?" And he looked at me. He said no. And I said, "Well, then I don't think you should go around saying anything like that about it until you've given it a chance and watched it." And I said, "I'm going to challenge you." And I brought him, season 1. I think I started him on DS9 because, first season of TNG, it's rough. It's difficult to watch. It's a bit easier. So I gave him season 1, DS9. I said, "Watch this. And if you hate it still, okay, fine. Come tell me how much you hate it. Come tell me how stupid it is. But give it a chance and watch it." And the following week, he came back and he's like, "Can I have season 2?"
Oh, awesome.
I converted him into a fan. And he ended up borrowing the rest of DS9, and then he ended up watching TNG, but he had bought them for himself by that point because he was hooked. He was a fan.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's oh, that's a great story.
Yeah.
That is an awesome story because you basically just you opened his eyes,
Yeah.
and that yes, do people get in their cosplay and all that stuff? Sure. But and I wish I could I saw something on X about that, and then someone said, "So what's the difference between, someone else dressing up for this and someone dressing up for, Star Trek?" And there's no difference. Um, and it's true. It really isn't. Oh, I think they may have been talking about everybody that dresses up for like the Renaissance Festival stuff you know so what's the difference in that and somebody who decides they want to dress up as a Klingon or in their full Starfleet admiral gear?
Yeah, exactly. And everyone outside of the fandom, I feel like, has this preconception of what Star Trek is, and because it's been so historically, like, linked to being a nerd or being, like, a geek or something, like, 'cause I grew up openly telling people that I'm a fan, like, in my elementary school, was I called a geek? Was I made fun of? Of course, but I owned it. I came to a point where I think it was our grade 7 speech when, we had to write our own speeches. I talked about all my favorite sci-fi shows.
Watch part 2 on Sunday at 12:30 p.m. Central on YouTube and X. Thank you for watching The Transporter Room. For just $5 per month, enjoy ad-free access to this episode and all previous ones, plus exclusive bonus content. Sign up now on Patreon.